I think we are really, really excited, not just about Jason and his show, but about this gallery and about you, because this brings us so much closer, and it really, really adds to what we do here at TCC. You came here perhaps for the first time, but it'll not be a stranger. We have the greatest exhibits, the greatest shows right here due to Jennifer, who is really doing a wonderful job. We have so many different shows. We have the one man or lady shows, one artist shows. We have group shows. The next show that's coming up is Dogs and Cats themed. Is that correct? All right, Dogs and Cats. So we might even see some of Jason again, if I see this correctly. But we are very, very excited that you are here. I want you to know how much this means. I mean, even if you right now were to pick your favorite one of these, doesn't it take a while to really take that in and do something with it? And that's what we all get to enjoy because we have that gallery, and it means a lot to our students. I know it means a lot to Jason, but Jason is really, really sharing, and he's giving us a glimpse into so many different worlds, and they are relevant. One of the programs we have here, for example, focus on sustainability. And think about this. Send your students in here and say, what can you make out of this space and out of this world that you get to explore here under that theme? And I think they could get crazy about it. They would really be able to explore that and take so much with them. And so that's why we are so happy that we are able to have this gallery. We are very appreciative of this support. And I want to introduce our president, Mrs. Dr. Ruland. Without her support and above all yours, we couldn't do this, and TCC wouldn't be what it is. So thank you very much. Don't be a stranger. Check out when the next events are, and listen for just a moment to Dr. Ruland.
Yeah, thank you for being here. We're very proud of our gallery here at Tacoma Community College. But what I'm always so impressed with when I have an opportunity to come to a gallery opening is to learn where our people are coming from. I know some of you have driven, I guess you're coming south from the Lake Washington area. I had an opportunity just to chat with a few minutes before our program is getting started, because he has some school affiliations of both where I worked at the University of Minnesota, so I was intrigued, and I asked him, what took you to get your Master's of Fine Arts at the University of Minnesota, so I could relate to it. The other thing I really enjoy doing when I come to exhibits, and again, this is all sold, I look around and every one I know has a story behind it, but I also like to pick out my favorite. And I gotta tell you, the bunnies over there are just, I don't know if it's the color, if it's the look, just one of my favorites as I walked around.
Thank you.
I wanted to share that with you. I know we're here to hear from you, so I don't want to take any more time in the program. You're going to learn a lot, but most importantly, enjoy your time here this evening after he's done sharing his story and talking, and capture and reflect on this wonderful exhibit that we're so fortunate to have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. My turn? All right, well, thank you very much for that great introduction, and I'm very grateful to God that we could all be here today, and I think it's so awesome to see so many people coming so far. And I think, Jennifer, I think you and I said 10 minutes, right? So try to keep it to 10 minutes. So we'll see. Why is everybody laughing? Too long? Okay, all right, how about this? All right, so with a little humor out of the way. Okay, so I want to thank, first of all, everybody for being here, and especially the students and the faculty and staff and administration and Board of Trustees of Tacoma Community College. I'm very, very appreciative to be here, and I'm very appreciative that all of you are here. And I really want to call out one very special person who you met, but I really want to call someone out for special thanks, and that's Jennifer Olson-Rudenko. Could you come back out here for just a moment, please? So we're very fortunate in Tacoma to have some wonderful cultural institutions. We have Tacoma Art Museum, we have Broadway Center for Performing Arts, we have Museum of Glass, and they do a fantastic job of bringing art to us. But Jennifer and the gallery at Tacoma Community College has been a beacon for local art, has been a beacon for art of the South Puget Sound of Tacoma. And I swear, like, when art historians and historians look back and they want to see what is happening in the art world around this area, they're going to look to the work that Jennifer has done. I would consider it a great honor if we could all give Jennifer a round of applause, please. And so as we mentioned, we have a lot of folks from my college up at Lake Washington Institute of Technology. I want to throw out that my family and I, we live here in Tacoma, and I work up in Kirkland, and so I know it took a lot for folks up in Kirkland to make it down, especially during rush hour, so I want to call out a few people. So our president, Dr. Amy Goings, will be here. She should be here pretty soon, so I introduce you to her. I'm very glad that she's going to be here. Associate Dean of Instruction, Sally Halstead, is here. And my dean, my fearless leader, Doug Emery, is here, and I want to thank him because when he hired me, he knew the importance of having an active exhibiting artist to build the art department. And he's been a champion of the visual arts at our school, and he's been a champion of me and my professional development, and I thank you so much. 1,000 thanks. So thank you, yes, absolutely. I see lots of other people. I see Joe Stickney. I see my right-hand woman, Gail Lonicky, who without her, the art department would probably grind to a halt. But if you are from Lake Washington Institute of Technology, either students, graduates, faculty, staff, would you just raise your hand real quick, please? Look at this. Yeah, L-Dub in the house. All right. So I have to thank some other people, and I promise I won't go like super Oscar night or anything here, but I need to thank my mother, Judy Sobottka. She's an artist herself. She was an art administrator, and she was a counselor for the K through 12 system here, and I look forward to showing her the show very, very soon. She gave my brother and I a lot of opportunities, and even when times were tough, we never were wanting for art materials. So that's just an amazing thing. My father, who couldn't be here, Tom Sobottka, I have to thank him, not just for the same encouragement, but he also introduced me to my mentors, Eric Sandgren and Catherine Cottonwar at Grays Harbor College. We continue to be collaborators and conspirators, and so thank you very, very much. Let's see, I had this all taped together to be cute, and now I have to play with this. All right, my in-laws, Rick and Jean Basil, thank you very much, and their grandson Jaden are here, so thank you for always coming to shows and being supportive. My brother Brandon and my sister-in-law Brandy and their children are here. Not only have they been supporters from the get-go, they own a lot of the topography show, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, my older work, so you should charge admission or something like that, and might, be a 401c3 nonprofit or something. I have to also thank Tori and Sarah Grant and mountain bike Mike Reed and Shannon Sullivan for always being supporters from all the way back from like junior high, so quite a long time. And last but not least, my amazing penguin wife, Jane Sobottka, who's an artist and who is the penguin in this piece right here, and my amazing daughter, Courtney Taylor, who we see in several paintings. And not only have they been instrumental in this show, they provided me with critical feedback both in content but also concept. And they've actually worked together on a piece. The piece behind Doug right here, the small version of Don't Mess with the Pink Rabbit. Courtney took the photo of our rabbit Ash, Jane drew the rabbit, and then together we worked them together in Photoshop. And so they collaborated on the work there. And I never asked permission to use either of you in the art, and yet, thank you. So I'm saying thank you, and I'm asking forgiveness, not permission. But so thank you very much. And thank you to all my friends and teammates, students and colleagues who have made it here. It means a great deal to me that you are here. And for those of you in the BTAT, I just said twice, so if you're counting, keep track. As you drove in, you probably saw the beautiful science and engineering buildings down there. So these really wonderful buildings. I would just like to reiterate that this beautiful gallery has been here for 14 or 15 years, and I think that shows a very strong commitment to STEAM education. We've heard a lot about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. I think it's vitally important to insert art into that, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And so whether you're coming from a college like TCC, whose mission is creating meaningful and relevant learning, inspiring greater equity, and celebrating success in our lives and our communities, or you're coming from the mission of my school, Lake Washington Institute of Technology, which is to prepare students for today's careers and tomorrow's opportunities, art is critical to that. It is at the core of that. And I'd just like to talk a little bit about why I think that's so important. So the arts are vital to culture, community, and education. I think that we have to remind ourselves, whether your mission or your goal is education, or it's more workforce, we don't know what the jobs of tomorrow, that's such a statement, the jobs of tomorrow. We don't know what jobs are going to look like in 5 years. We don't know what jobs are going to look like in 10 years. So to prepare students to think critically, to have them think abstractly, to be able to visualize things and make connections in new and unique ways, that's why I love that you talked about the sustainability program and how we can actually have that scientific discussion based on these paintings and really look for areas of convergence and confluence. I think that's critical. Art helps many different learning styles, not just the visual learners of the world. So we talk about that as educators a lot. All the different learning styles, art plays a role with that. Art increases mental dexterity, increases critical thinking skills, and abstract thinking. It also helps with craftsmanship and professionalism, having to actually transfer something that's in your head through your eyes and your hand onto a surface or onto a form or into a computer. That takes a very, very, very high degree of skill and learning, and it's vitally important in my humble opinion. Those of my students who have heard me pull out the soapbox from time to time, I have a soapbox issue, and that's that I think it's not too conspiratorial to believe that there are people in this world who wish people were less visually literate. If nothing else, you see 1,000 images in your daily life. So it makes you more susceptible to advertising. So art helps with visual literacy. I think that's really, really important. And past civilizations are remembered from their cultural artifacts and their cultural contributions. And then something Eric and I have talked a lot about, art has the opportunity to archive history. We're putting all our efforts into digital. We're putting all our efforts into technological archiving of our history. Oil on canvas, encaustic on canvas, graphite on paper, gelatin on paper in black and white photography, those are proven to outlast all technologies. So art is incredibly important for our culture. And I'd like to wrap this little section up before we talk about my work with the statement that I don't think art is a luxury, I don't think art is frivolous. And I want to share with you some numbers real quick. So the 2014 Arts Fund Economic Impact Study in Washington State proved that cultural nonprofits in the arts and in science, so things like Point Defiance Zoo and Aquarium, or the Pacific Science Center, and then Tacoma Art Museum, Seattle Art Museum, all the galleries in Tacoma and Seattle, they generated $2.4 billion, with a B, $2.4 billion to the Washington state economy. They created more than 35,000 jobs. They created $995 million in labor income and $105 million in taxes generated. So art has a tremendous impact not just on our community, on education, it has a huge impact on our economy and in our lives. So with that, it's not a very elegant transition, but I'd like to talk a little bit about the work. And I think, because I'm going to try to stick to 10 minutes, I would love questions, but I think maybe independently. You can come up and ask me questions, and then maybe I can be a little bit more informal. So Jennifer and I put together a very nice brochure. It's a trifold brochure. It should be on the counter. If we run out today, it will be on my website at jasonsobotka.com. But in it, I detail in quite some detail, lots of words, a lot about this show. So a lot of questions might be answered there. But I wanted to back up and ask my wife, Jane, I want to show an older piece of art. And I do believe this piece was actually shown here probably back in 2004 or so. And the reason I want to show this piece is this is one of my favorite pieces from what I call the topography series. I was working with ideas of the landscape and animals within the landscape. So, oh, I need that.
Hold this?
Sure,
Oh,
sure.
great. Okay,
So actually, you know what, maybe I don't need this, but thank you so much. So I'm using actually found woods from certain places, like this is all from Washaway Beach on the coast, and soils that are from actual landscapes where I've lived. And I worked for 15 years on this series, and I spent a lot of time, and I had a show in Twisp, Washington called Nature Always Wins. And the artist and the curator there, Tori Karpenko, he said, Jason, you've been part of the show from the beginning, but I gotta ask you, all your animals are either skeletal or they're stencil forms, they're missing. How is nature winning? And that made a synaptic connection. It actually made me think all the way back to the University of Montana, where I had a discussion with the artist Marianne Bongiorni, and we had discussions about how maybe in our lifetime we're going to have geoengineered futures where parts of the country have to pump out certain chemicals into the atmosphere and other parts have to cloud seed and do everything just to make natural systems work. And we were very grim. We were talking very grim sort of things about that. But I do think it's interesting, especially when we view this work, there are scientists and science fiction folks who actually view that possibility of a geoengineered Anthropocene with a little bit more hope. They almost see it as human potential. And so maybe that's a lens for which we can look at this. Thank you so much. I was very dedicated to these pieces, but when Tori mentioned that comment and when Marianne Bongiorni and I had that discussion, it allowed me to completely stop editing or censoring some of these crazy beasts that were in my head. A lot of these critters, a lot of these things like the elk, they had been pestering me for years, but I was editing them out, I was censoring them, and then I said, you know what, nature's got to win. So I thought about a way to create sort of a work that celebrates the animal, that celebrates the idea that maybe they have to adapt or evolve to thrive. And so that's the work you see here. And there's basically three sort of areas of work that I'd like to point out, and then if you have questions, we can come up and talk. And when you walk in, we have sort of the most straightforward. Those are the interventions or the defense. So we have predator drones protecting endangered rhino, or we have over here, because we've kind of mixed it up, but we have wolves with Kevlar vests. So they're very sort of straightforward. They could be happening in the 21st century. We could imagine like the Humane Society running out and putting on a Kevlar vest on a wolf or something. A little bit of humor, a little bit of seriousness. Those are the interventions in the defense. Then we come into this room and we have what, well, I'll admit, is a lot more personal to me. We have a lot of things like family. I have my daughter there. I have my wife as a penguin, which is a whole nother discussion we'll have to have later. Animals that we have shared our lives with, and they are characters in this narrative, and they become something else because they kind of flow into the third room, which actually part of the third room comes over here, and those are sort of the idea of protective spirits or chimera. So the idea that maybe some of these beasts, like the classical minotaur, but in this case we have the Pacific Northwest hipster Elkatar with his cartoon tattoos and everything. These are all kind of the same sort of genre, and then we end with symbiotic mutualism, which is the combination of animals to the point where it's pure fantasy. There's no science really behind it, but we have maybe a vegetarian elk that requires pescatarian kingfishers to thrive and survive. So it's kind of funny, but it's kind of serious, and I'm really trying to figure out what these things actually mean. So I know it sounds like I know what I'm talking about, but so I invite you to look at these. I invite you to ask some questions, and I'm sure that's probably number 5 of the ums that I said. But wrapping it up, I'd just like to point out a couple things. Commitment to the figure and to drawing. So each of these paintings have a strong commitment to the handmade craft. And all of them also show commitment to the animal. The brochure that you can pick up talks a lot about medieval Christian bestiaries and the idea that artists in medieval times would take animals and the visuals of animals that they thought they understood, they would apply biblical allegory to them, and they would create these fantastic beasts, like whales would be more like dragons, and that's kind of where I'm approaching some of these things. Like maybe there is a spiritual aspect to some of these, and maybe they are sort of anatomically correct, but then I take these really strong liberties. Like elk obviously don't combine into one elk that share their antlers, but that's sort of what's going on with some of these things. So science is important to me, but by no means are these scientific works. These are fantasy, these are illusion. They're meant for you to ask questions and hopefully have fun and maybe ponder some really key topics, but in a very, very fun way. So, may I introduce you? Dr. Amy Goings is the president of Lake Washington Institute of Technology. So, thank you very much. If you have any questions, please come up and chat with me. And thank you again for being here. It really means a lot to me. So thank you.